Project 1065, Chapter 7, Hitler Youth. In school, I hung my coat on a peg and took a seat near the back of the room. I didn't have any friends at school on purpose, so I sat alone. My class was all 13-year-old boys, 40 of us, no girls. They had us school in an entirely different building. None of the boys were studying for the math test we had today, because none of them cared. Almost all of them, like me, were in the Hitler Youth. We were all going to move from the Jungvolk, the junior Hitler Youth ranks, to the senior Hitler Youth squads in a year's time when we turned 14. At 18, we would graduate from the Hitler Youth into the Reich's land service and work for free on a farm in a country for a year, and after that, we would join the Army or the Navy or the Air Force and fight in the war. What do we need to worry about math for? I tugged on the collar of my Hitler Youth uniform. I hated the thing. I felt like a traitor wearing it. But if you were a boy in Nazi Germany in 1943, you were in the Hitler Youth. It was a requirement. Some of the boys in class were in my Hitler Youth troop, but not all of them. The troops were arranged by neighborhood. The only boys in class who weren't in the Hitler Youth had been kicked out or weren't allowed in until their parents joined the Nazi Party, and they sat weary and miserable in the front rows, trying desperately to avoid the rest of the boys who were allowed to bully them without punishment. If those poor boys didn't find a way to join the Hitler Youth before we graduated, they wouldn't have any kind of future in Nazi Germany. They would get drafted into the German army at the lowest ranks and sent to Russia to die in the snow. A boy stood by the desk next to me. I recognized him. His name was Fritz Brendler. He was new. He'd moved to Berlin only a few weeks ago. He was barely taller standing up than I was sitting down. The Hitler Youth uniform he wore was 2 sizes too big for him, and his legs and arms stuck out of it like the wooden stick limbs of a marionette. His nose was long and thin, his blonde hair cut so close he was almost bald, and his ears, the only parts of him that were regular-sized, looked so huge on his little head that they stuck out like wings on a bomber. I could sense Fritz hoping I would turn and say hello, but I didn't. I didn't want a new friend. Definitely not a German one, who might be a rabid Nazi for all I knew. I had a job to do here, and a German friend would just get in the way. Sit down, you little wretches," Herr Professor Dr. Major Melker said, giving a tardy student a hard smack on the head with his ruler as the boy tried to slip by him into a desk. It was time for Nazi school.